Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon if you're in the United States. Good morning tomorrow if you're Tony Hughes in Australia, joining us at 6 a.m. now, right?
Yeah, 6 a.m.
And he just got his cup of tea for the morning. We're also joined by Vivian, our star account executive here, former sales development rep, former sales development manager, junior account executive, and now well on her way towards becoming a senior account executive. Say hi, Vivian.
Hello, happy to be here.
And also a Division I volleyball player. Don't mess with her. So we're going to be doing a call camp. We're going right into the content. You don't care about us. You care about call camp, but I am going to give you a little bit on Tony Hughes. I'm going to make him blush a little bit. So lots of sales books out there, right? Tons and tons of sales books. I have not read Combo Prospecting, so I've got to get on that, Tony. I'll be looking at that soon. But I got to tell you that the book, The Joshua Principle, which as you're looking at his picture just to the left, see that picture of, it's got a chess piece on it with there it is, RSVP selling. I'll say some kind of maybe ridiculous, but it changed my life. I think it's changed the lives of a lot of sales professionals out there. Ultimately, when you come down to it, I look at myself as a peddler. I don't look at myself as any sort of sales thought leader. I think if I was living in the 1700s, I'd be out there as a Yankee peddler, walking around the countryside selling candlesticks or something. I think Tony's kind of the same too. And that book is something that we have everyone read at a certain point in their careers. It's just fantastic. It is a transformational book. Vivian, anything to say about that book?
No, I mean, it's a must read, especially I think before moving from SDR to an AE role. It does such a good job encapsulating what a strong AE does every day. So even worst case scenario, you realize it's not for you, but I think most people get excited and they realize that, it's going to take a lot to be successful, but there's so much potential.
And it's called The Joshua Principle, RSVP Selling. Actually, Vivian, if you could please try to Google a link and pop it in there. I've got Keith in there asking about it. You definitely want to check it out. And dare I say, I will call it my favorite sales book of all time because it's also a story. It's a narrative. It's very rare that you read a book about sales. It's not just sort of a book of tactics. It's really readable. Anybody, even if you're not in sales, is going to want to read it and find out how the story ends, which I'm not going to spoil. All right, Tony, what do you have to say?
Steve, thank you very much. I'm humbled and flattered. Just to let everybody know, the best way to get that book is as an ebook or audiobook. I can mail it from Australia. You'll find it on my website, tonyhughes.com.au. My second book, Combo Prospecting, is published by HarperCollins out of the US, so that's a lot easier to get as a paperback. So yeah, and have read a Combo Prospecting as well. That's really aimed at the SDR role.
Very good. We are going to get a link in here. We're getting a lot of questions about that book, and we got to get distribution once and for all. You and I will take that offline. All right. So with that, it is time for us to do some call camp. What we do here, the rules of the road. We're breaking down real sales calls for what works and what doesn't. I did not pre-select these calls. And actually, Vivian, I'm going to share my screen and take it back from you. All right. I did not pre-screen these calls, frankly, because I didn't prepare. And I didn't prepare this time because I was too busy doing all this other stuff, running around today, getting all the other sessions going. So Tony, when we were preparing in the green room, the virtual green room, you were describing some things that are going on in a post-COVID world, especially as it pertains to cold calling. Can you give us some of those thoughts and topics that you're thinking about?
Yeah, maybe just to frame things up, it's very easy for us as sellers to think that there's a whole lot of apathy out there in the marketplace. And I have to tell you that the reverse is true. In every virtual boardroom on the face of the planet, the leaders are talking and they're saying to themselves, we must not let a crisis go to waste. This is a once in a career, once in a lifetime, a work lifetime opportunity for us as leaders to drive previously unimagined change. So all the leaders know that they've got lots of license, social license from employees, unions, regulators, to make a whole lot of radical change to both drive cost out of their business. For many organizations, they're thinking, how do we run channel shift initiatives, get our clients engaging with us digitally so we have less expensive human beings involved in the process. Maybe we can reduce the number of premises that we operate. So they're all thinking we can drive cost out while improving customer experience at the same time. And this will all lower our cost base. They're all thinking, how do we emerge through the back end of what I call the Great Recession, that we're now in the COVID-induced Great Recession. How do we come at the back end of this stronger than competition? And the truth is, as a seller, we need the mindset of making their excuse the very reason why we need to engage. Most objections can be anticipated. And the other piece of this, you may feel like punching me for saying this, but I think most sellers self-generate objections in prospects by the way that we open. So for example, if you call someone up and you sound that you're lower than them in your station in life and you're a bit needy as a seller, hey, do you have time? Would it be okay to talk? You're just inviting the person to give you a pushback. So we need to anticipate what the objections could be, make them the very reason, and we need to position in a way that doesn't invite pushbacks.
There's, I'm sure you're familiar with the body of research called the Stanford Prison Simulation that I actually haven't thought about that in a long time. It's a guy named Professor Zimbardo. Funny enough, I was, as a freshman, my best friend, a freshman in college, my best friend went to Stanford, and I went and visited him at Stanford for spring break, being from the East Coast. So I was like, wow, this was great. I didn't have any kind of fun plans, but I was just there for the week hanging out with my friend. And at one point I got invited by one of his friends she said, you should check out this lecture. This guy Zimbardo is amazing. And he talks about what they talk about in the lecture is the psychology of good and evil. They created this simulation, this fictitious prison guards prisoners. They put people in roles. And what they found is that even though they were dealing with basically normal, nice kids from the area, that the prison guards started acting sadistically towards the prisoners, doing things like making them do push-ups with their foot on them and not beating them, but almost like torturous sorts of things. And they actually had to cut it short. So role dictates behavior. And that's what Tony's talking about. It's a very, very powerful thing, psychological kind of tenet. So what we're going to look at here is I pulled a quick search of all of the calls. We have 3 sales development reps, and big shout outs to Samantha and Matt Smith and also Peter Cook for allowing us to do this. They were all, I texted them about an hour before this and they said, play my calls. I want Tony's feedback. So excited about that. I did a quick advanced search of all the calls with a disposition that we call not a no, not a yes. This is that they're not agreeing to an appointment, but they're not also completely declining the appointment. It's like all nebulous in the middle. And when I did this, check this out, this trend is funny. I think this is fascinating because I think what was happening is especially as the pandemic was really in the beginning, everyone was just telling us no to an appointment. So we got a lot of just straight up no's. But then as the year sort of wore on here, especially in the summer, now we're in this environment where we're seeing that people are more willing to potentially engage, and they're like, half in and half out. If we can get the domino to fall this way and not that way, we're gonna get more engagement, more scheduled meetings, more opportunity creation, more pipeline, good things will happen. You can't close something unless you open it in the first place. So let's go ahead and listen to Sam's call and let's kick this thing off. I'm gonna go back to the beginning and I'm gonna play him at 1x to start.
How are you? Good, how are you? Good. Thanks so much for asking. I know that you've been with T-Mobile actually for some time now. I still feel like 10 years ago is 2000. But I know since 2002, and I know that actually T-Mobile just became the #2 provider for wireless providers. I actually just switched over from Sprint. But I was curious to know I saw that you were in sales training of how you guys have been handling with COVID going on, your sales enablement or development of your reps, how you're getting insights on their performance.
Okay, so there is a lot of stuff going on in that lead in. So Tony, talk to us. What are you hearing?
So the first thing I like is that she sought to show them that you know them. So, obviously had done some pragmatic research before the call. That's one of the expectations of buyers today. They expect us to show them that we know them before we've ever even asked them a single question. So there was definitely a tick for that. My view is that what people want us to get to very quickly is why should they care about a conversation with us? Buyers today are not interested in educating sellers, right, on how they can then sell back to them. So, what I saw happen here is that the call was open and warmed, I think relatively effectively. There'd been pragmatic research done to show the person that they'd done some research and that they knew them. And then what happened is the seller jumped into asking a question. And I think what you need to do before jumping into ask questions, you need to earn the right to ask the question. Now, most sellers make the mistake of earning the right to ask questions by establishing our own credentials. So let me tell you about who we are and what we do and how we do it. And that, in my view, is a very big mistake, because nobody cares about what we do and how we do it until they first acknowledge that there could be a potential need. So what I think we need to do is we need a point of view, what some would call a hypothesis of value, about how this person could potentially improve results in their role. And then once you've done that, once they lean into that part of the conversation, you then say, hey, do you mind if I ask?
Okay, and this is great, and I'm framing everything from the standpoint of a framework, a coaching framework that we use called Observe, Describe, Prescribe, which comes from Keenan, a guy named Keenan, and he borrowed it and adapted it from professional ski instruction. Actually, Kevin Dorsey was just talking about it in this last session. It really is, I think, the best. I think it's a lot better than Grow, to be honest with all due respect to Grow people. The thing that I like in this, Tony, is that we can ask Sam this question. So, Sam, what's the hypothesis of value? I want to see if she can figure that out. What's the hypothesis of value for T-Mobile? Another way of thinking about that too is it's like, what's the context for the question? The hypothesis of value becomes the context of the question. This becomes the context for the question. And you see, Tony, maybe you figure this out. I'm killing two birds with one stone. The 3 SDRs report to me, and I'm a little behind in my call coaching. So we're going to get it at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, we have, we're pretty lucky. We have a lot of different analytics that are already in place. And especially with the merger with Sprint, we are able to leverage some of the tools that they have that we did not. So we are right now, we're in a really good place to look at not only, analytics and results, but behaviors that are going to drive those results. So unlike a lot of companies, surprisingly, we actually are okay on this one. How do you, you mentioned the driving the behavior.
All right, we're in a really good place. We're already getting a sort of soft objection to, the context that's been set so far. What are your thoughts here?
So I think it all comes back to the why. If we don't establish the why strongly, we're always going to be in trouble with the call. So the mindset of potential buyers today is that, hey, we want less tech in the stack, less vendors to deal with. The CFO, the leadership team are wanting us to cull the herd. They're wanting us to cull the number of people that we deal with. We're actually looking for more value from fewer supplier relationships. We're just not looking to add anything new right now, given what's going on in the economy. So again, I just think the way a person in their selling career can go from good to great, is to really think, how do I anticipate this? I need to open with a strong point of view. And we've called that a hypothesis of value, but a strong point of view. So if this person is calling a telco, it's awesome that this seller, did some research about how long the person has been in a role. But and look, I'm just making this up. I'm assuming this would be true, but saying, hey, with everything going on in the economy right now, what we're seeing with telcos is an increase in customer churn. And I've got some ideas on how I think you could reduce customer churn and in a way that also increases average revenue per customer. And what we used to do is we used to close for getting the on-site meeting, so the handoff to an AE typically. But increasingly today, we're not closing for the on-site because it's COVID. What we're wanting to do is to create strong engagement on the call. And even for all of us that are listening to this, when we think about, the whole qualification process, buyers don't like being qualified by a seller, nor do they like being given the Spanish Inquisition, with 99 questions. They don't want to feel that they're educating the seller. So we have to open with why it matters. And so we need to think about what's the opportunity for this person in their role to improve results, right? So if the person is linked to reducing customer churn, if they're linked to improving average revenue per handset, per customer, per client, then let's talk about that. And my view is what you want is a double-edged point of view. And I use the phrasing, hey, I've got some ideas on how I think you could, and in a way that. then you have your two benefits, and you make sure they're strongly relevant to this buyer persona. So you open the call, which this person did really well, right? You open the call by warming it with some personalization to show them that you know them, but then very quickly jump into your point of view. And once they've lent into that, say, hey, do you mind if I ask? Right? And now the questions have got good context in the mind of the buyer. They're answering these because, hey, there's the opportunity to reduce churn in a market for telcos where that's starting to really go up.
I love this, and I'm going to build on it with one additional thing that I put here in the comment, which is status quo. By the way, show them you know them is from a guy named Jeb Blount. We would be remiss if we didn't give Jeb his due.
He's great, and by the way, also the legendary Mary Lou Tyler. She's talked about that for a long time as well.
Oh, actually, you know what? You're right. He might have got it from Mary Lou, huh?
Yeah, I think Mary Lou was first. Maybe
you're right.
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's like you and I are like these, like we're like sales methodology, sales like tip historians. Like, you know, we archivists. You know, I want to know the origin of where all these things came from. I guess it all originally came from you know, like a Huthwaite, or even before that, the guy that did Ada. Remember that one? All those.
Yes,
things.
I do.
Yeah. So, all right, here we go.
That's kind of, how do you guys measure that? There's a few different metrics. I mean, obviously we've got Salesforce, right, that is able to track some of the behaviors and some of the expectations. That's layered on with some of our performance management tools. We leverage Einstein in Salesforce as well. We've got our results tracking. And then, are you familiar with Outreach?
I am, yeah, for like call recording and kind of sales cadence.
Yeah. So we also use Outreach for some of our groups. So, you know, right now, I mean, it seems to be, given what they can do, right? I mean, the environment's changed and we've adapted, but I feel like we are in a really good place for today and what we can do today, and as well as the appetite with everything we have going on in the company to, you know, like there's only so much you can shove down people's throats, right? And so we're hitting that threshold with everything that we have. I mean, we've gone through a lot of changes, lots of others, but you know, with that merger layered onto it, I think the capacity is where it's at.
Okay. With Outreach, I mean, are you guys leveraging?
All right. So again, the thing that I like about this, though, that I'm going to say, Tony, is, and this is a nod to Tom Snyder and the System 1, System 2 that I learned from him. But it's a term 3x3 research that I coined a long time ago. Because Samantha did the initial research, she earned the right to a conversation. So I am not going to call this, because there's kind of two flavors of objections. There's flavor one is like the, I'm objecting to the experience of being sold to. And that's essentially what it is. Objection number two, flavor number two, is I'm actually understanding and engaging and giving you the real lay of the land of what's going on here and why we might not be susceptible to looking, because we know at any given time, in any given market, 57% of the market is not poised to begin looking, 40% is, and then 3% is actively buying. You know, and no more beautiful example, I did a post on this there's our bed in our master bedroom. And there's my bed, and people are like, why are you sleeping on the floor, Steve? What are you on the outs with your wife? No, our marriage is going very well. Thank you very much. It's because that bed kills my back. However, we didn't buy that long ago, and my wife is like, we're not spending any more money on a bed. So if that's hurting your back, then you got to figure something out for yourself. So I got these nice pink sheets and my little twin bed on the floor, right? So the reason I bring this up is we got to understand the status quo. We got to understand, are they in the 57%, the 3%, or the 40%? This to me sounds like 57% language, but at least she's talking, she's engaging. You see what I mean? So as you were hearing her describe her kind of softball objections given their situation, don't shove anything else down people's throat. You know, we have to reduce the number of tools. What are you thinking?
I agree with you 100%. The thing I like about this call is in the last sort of 60% that we've had so far, the listen talk ratio has been really strong. So the thing that Samantha's done a brilliant job of is she's got the person engaged. So Sam's got the person engaged and she's got them talking, which I think is 70-80% of the battle. So congratulations on doing that, Sam. I think that was brilliant. But I don't think this call is going anywhere. And again, it just comes back to, we need to open with why should the person care about this conversation? So unless there's a point of view about how they can potentially improve results, it's really tough. And this person is being polite in answering the questions, but I can sense in their voice they're starting to get tired of the conversation now. Is the thing that I think is happening. So, what's going to, like, I haven't heard this call. So what's going to probably happen is just continuing to resist and say, look, can you send me something? Because, often what happens is people just say that as the most polite way to get rid of us, but that's where I would anticipate this is going.
Let's hear. I bet you're right.
Layered onto it, I think the capacity is where it's at. Okay. With outreach, I mean, are you guys leveraging those call recordings that it uses to kind of coach your? Okay. How do you pick which calls out of like the bank that outreach collects? That's really each manager. I mean, they have their own schedule on what they need to do and how they manage their team. So that is really left up to those sales leaders on what that looks like. Okay. I just asked, I work for a conversation intelligence platform, and we leverage call recordings and surface coachable moments by customizing and configuring what you guys look for. I don't know if you're familiar with that tech. Yeah, we've seen and talked to some, and I mean, just to be 100% transparent, right now where we are, obviously our...
Go ahead.
I love the way that Sam sort of described what we do without talking about our product or brand, right? So the thing I'd encourage Sam to really think about is to talk about the result of what we do as opposed to a generic descriptor of what we do. So in essence, that was a description of what we do without the how we do it. But what I think is more powerful is talking about the result, right? So for example, a new business I've just started myself with some other people is it's an e-learning platform, around sales training with my concepts. But the thing I've been working with my partner who's doing the selling is let's not talk about, an e-learning platform. Let's talk about the result, right? So, we help sales leaders ensure that their remote sellers stay motivated and effective, in the way that they generate pipeline to de-risk your forecast to your boss, right? Now, so we use that kind of language instead of, we help you train people at scale even though they're remote. People don't want training at scale even though they're remote, but what they do want is their remote sellers to be motivated and self-generating pipeline to be hitting the forecast that they're on the hook for with their boss, right? So I just encourage you to talk about the outcome of what we deliver and get them to ask. So how do you guys do that? And then Sam could say what she said. Yeah. So you wanted to get them to lean into the conversation without high level annoying cliches. We help organizations, reduce cost and grow revenue. That's just an annoying cliche. So
don't do that. Right.
Yeah. It needs to be specific. So I think Sam's doing a great job. I just say, lead with some kind of point of view that you're almost certain is going to be on the money. The reason it's a double-edged point of view, I have some ideas on how I think you could. And in a way that, do you mind if I ask? The reason you need to know it's pretty much on the money. And that's why buyer personas are so key. You need to know how this buyer persona is typically measured in their role and the trends and stresses that they're dealing with. So for me, in my world, if I'm talking to a head of sales in the B2B tech space, I know that they've got at best 40% of people missing their number, in all probability way above 70% of people missing their number. And I'm pretty much on the money with that. So I say, look, obviously I don't know your business specifically, but typically for leaders in your role, you've got 40 to 70% of people not hitting their number. I've got some ideas on how you can reduce that. And in a way where you can hold your sellers to account for self-generating pipeline. And, that phrase resonates with them because it's what they want. What they don't want is another gym membership, another piece of tech they're going to subscribe to that nobody really uses. That's the complaint of Sales Navigator in a lot of organizations. We pay this expensive subscription for Nav and my people barely know how to find their way around it. They're sort of bumbling in the dark and don't use it. Why would I want another subscription to another piece of software that they don't use? So, I just say, don't talk about what they don't want. Talk about what you believe that they do want or need in their role.
I think this ties nicely back as well into a little bit like playing a role and playing the equal. that instead of Samantha coming into this as an SDR, she can put herself into the shoes of Heidi. If I am the senior manager of sales training at T-Mobile, what are some of my concerns right now? Where's the industry headed? What are my goals? And then lead with that hypothesis.
And I love this, Vivian, because, and it's exactly what Tony's saying. And I wrote it right here. It says, it's okay. I mean, look, Outreach is our title sponsor for this event. We wouldn't have Outreach as our title sponsor if they were competitive with us. That they're not. We have an integration with Outreach with Exec Vision, and probably a lot of the people, I see there's 82 people watching this, a lot of them are probably Outreach customers. So you gotta, going back to what you said with the results, what are the results that Exec Vision can provide that Outreach can't provide them? So I would start having, I want her to conclude that for herself, but I would start saying things like, one of the things we hear about Outreach is they give you the call recording, which is great, but then they don't give you any visibility into, are your managers even coaching? How are they providing feedback? Is there consistency? Do you have, hey Heidi, I'm guessing when you onboard people, you probably have some very specific behaviors you're listening for and looking for in the calls, right? Yes, we do. Great. How are you ensuring that that's actually being followed? How are you ensuring that there is accountability amongst the leadership team and the managers so that what you're teaching them in training or your people are teaching them in training ends up becoming practice in the real world? And what she said there is we sort of leave the managers up to their own devices for when and how they leverage call recordings. I mean, at a place like T-Mobile, that is not going to work at scale. And that to me is like, you got to understand, what does your customer status quo look like? Shout out Trish Bertuzzi. She's always banging the drum on that one. Here's what the status quo looks like. And like Tony's saying, here are the sort of results that you just cannot achieve with the current status quo. Outreach call recordings alone will not allow you to solve those problems. They're not going to tell you if your reps are talking too much. They're not going to tell you which of your coaches are the most effective. It just doesn't. It's just not built for those purposes at all. We got some comments and chats, Vivian. Can you have a quick look and then we'll finish this thing? You see him coming up yet or no?
Yeah, I've been keeping up with them. So far, we've gotten a couple requests to share the actual recording that we're listening to right now. We will share a session of this call recording with everybody, so you'll have access to this full call recording. And then I said I can share one-off if a couple people have some highlights that they're think might benefit their team specifically.
Very much so. And if you're an Exec Vision customer, we will put this exact call recording into your account if you want it, even with the comments. So if that would be useful, we can do that for you if you're a customer today, which I think a lot of people are that are watching. All right, let's finish this up and go to the next one.
Our merger went through on April 1st. We've spent the last 3 to 4 months integrating the companies, and we're not done yet. That won't finalize until the end of this year. And, we're part of that is looking at what we already have, what Sprint already has, and then determining if we need something else. But until we get through that exercise, I mean, I would say call me back in January, but until then, there's just not really any appetite. Yeah, no, I understand.
You knew it was coming.
Yeah, so this is a great example. So now we've got the excuse. The excuse is we're busy with the integration project between the two organizations. Call me back when that's done. So now again, I know it's unfair to say be a mind reader, but if we do our research and we see, hey, they just made an acquisition, they're merging these organizations together, you can reasonably anticipate that's probably going to be one of the pushbacks. Hey, we're busy doing the merger. Everything's on hold. We're assessing all the different tools and vendors we work with. We're just not ready to call me back in 6 months or 4 months or something. So what you want in your point of view is, hey, I've got some ideas on how you can de-risk the merger. So I've got some ideas on how you can de-risk the merger, and in a way that, and in a way that makes sure you maintain really strong sales momentum with all of the teams, right? So I'm not saying that's the perfect point of view, but something like that would typically work really well, right? And then that would lead into questions around, hey, do you mind just talking me through, how do you know whether your sales managers are doing a great job on coaching their people? Because what we typically see is that sales management is the weak link in the revenue chain. So look, I'm aware you probably got tools, but how do you know whether your people are doing a really good job of coaching? Because what we're seeing, especially for telcos, is that's where you can make the biggest retention on account retention and revenue growth, right? So just think about what's going to probably be the pushback Steve, maybe when we finish this call, I'll give you a real example of a company I work with in the travel industry where they got smashed, right? They had to lay off 85% of their staff. Their revenues almost completely stopped, and they're a global leader in the travel industry. I work with them on how do you create a narrative with clients who are saying, look, there's no point meeting or talking. Come back and see us when the airlines are back in the air and people are traveling again. There's no point meeting. I said, well, let's
do it now. What is it? Yeah. What do you say there? I don't even know. I don't know.
Okay, so this is a brand that operates in the States as well. FCM Travel and Corporate Traveler. They're actually an Australian business that's global. So what I said to their leadership team is, you know, let's make the excuse the reason. And here was the narrative they came up with. They would call a prospect or a customer, and they would say, hey, with everything going on, we did not say COVID. The moment you mention COVID, you paint yourself as a fear-mongering seller. I just said, hey, with everything going on right now, I've got some ideas on how I think you can drive 8 to 12% of cost out of what's typically the third biggest expense line on your P&L, and in a way that reduces duty of care risk with staff. And the reason is, with no one traveling, you've got the bandwidth in your finance team to revisit your travel policy and your procedures, the way you're managing it as a process. And you've got no change management issues with staff because no one's traveling right now. So now is the time to revisit your policy and process. So when things return to a semblance of normal, it's with you having driven out 8 to 12% of cost and with less duty of care risk. When can we make time to have a look at this? Because now is the perfect time to do it. You've got the bandwidth, no change management issues. And they started getting engagement with people that was off the charts. So while their competitors curled up into the fetal position, thinking our industry's been smashed, you know, because they make money from airline tickets and hotel bookings, right? That's what a travel management company does.
Right.
While their competitors are in the fetal position thinking, oh, it's rude and insensitive and inappropriate to call prospects right now while they're all distressed with COVID, this company said, no, now's the time to step in. We're going to make the people that we deal with in our customer base, we're going to make them more relevant, important for their own organization. We're protecting the job of our customers. Our customers can say to their boss, hey, although I don't have a lot of work to do right now, I'm working on a project that's going to drive 8 to 12% of cost out of our third biggest expense line item, you know, when we go back to normal, right? So they're making themselves more relevant. So it's so easy to think, you know, I don't want to be pushy, but selling has always been about making a positive difference in the lives of customers, both personally and professionally. And depending on what it is you sell, you're helping that manager protect the jobs of the people in their team if you have a point of view on how they can improve results in their role. You know, they're all fearful in a recession as well for their own job and for the jobs of their people. So go to them with a point of view on how they can improve results in their role, right? It's the very best thing you can do for them. So the foundation of selling is personal belief, right? Be a really strong believer. And, you know, for Exec Vision, the value that you provide is off the charts because organizations spend a fortune on selling and most people fail. Most people are ineffective. Coaching is absolutely the weak link, you know, it's absolutely the weak link. And you help people gain those insights and really move the needle.
I love this. The excuse is the reason. I mean, I challenge everyone watching this. I know there are a lot of managers, individual contributors. If you're an individual contributor, ask yourself that question for what you're selling and who you're selling to. What are the excuses you know are coming up and how do we make those be the reasons? And how do we tie it back to a hypothesis of business value like Tony is describing that is magnifique. It's great. I love it. Let's go to Matt Smith's call.
Hey, Dave, this is Matt with Exact Vision. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, Matt? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, thanks. I was just reaching out.
Let me tell you something about Velasys. I know a little bit about this business. So Velasys is, they're the ones that like do all like the coupons and the stuff for small businesses in the mail. Typically it's mail, but there's some digital transformation there as well, where they're also doing like kind of digital campaigns for their customers, which are typically fairly small businesses. I think anyone from, you know, a restaurant, a dry cleaner, a car wash. I think it's more of those types of places is the customer for Velasys. So you can only imagine you better come again with an excuse as a reason for a call like this.
to you. I saw that you're involved with developing like a technology-enhanced account management environment at Velasas. And I was just curious, what sort of things are you guys doing in regards to call coaching for the sales team there?
Really, I mean, it's just through the recordings we have with our existing vendor. The directors are then just kind of going through, and they've developed like a best practices, things to look for, things to stay away from. It's typically done during one-on-ones.
Okay, and what sort of call recording software are you using?
Noble Systems, but we're looking to move off of that. We've got partnerships with SalesLoft and Xant to do a bake-off, so we're moving to one of those here shortly.
Okay, awesome. Well, what's cool about Exact Vision is it partners with both SalesLoft and Xant. Now, are you guys just are you using any sort of call coaching software in conjunction with that, or is it just like a big pile of call recordings that you sift through?
It's the recording, but it's not really much.
I want to make one note here about this stuff. Funny enough, if the outreach people are watching this, they're probably going to want to jump all over this. This was not planned, but Xant is the old InsideSales.com. SalesLoft and Outreach are all in the same category. That's called sales engagement. But when I want to ask Vivian, when I hear that they're looking at and evaluating and talking to Xant and SalesLoft, and of course, DialSource is in this category, which we love DialSource as well. There are others as well. When I hear that, what am I thinking about in the pie chart? Where is this buyer?
They're actively looking.
They're actively buying.
They're in the 3%.
They're in the 3%, which sort of changes everything. Tony, anything to add there?
Yeah, this is gold. So Matt has struck gold, but I've got to give Matt a huge compliment in the way that he's run this call. He's really calm. He's authoritative, so he's got exactly the right intonation of voice in my view. Although he didn't open with a point of view, he had a level of gravitas that I just think created a really good level of engagement with this person. And to me, if I was the buyer, Matt sounds relevant. Not that Sam didn't. I thought Sam did a great job as well. But, although Matt's jumped into questions, I think this particular potential buyer is engaged more positively. Maybe it's because he's in the window, is really maybe the only two differences here, right? Because I certainly thought that Sam, spoke really well too. But it's interesting, if you find someone in the window, having that strong point of view is less important, right? Because they're already open. But as you've said, that's only 3% of the time, right? So, I'm really interested to see where this call goes. I think he's doing a good job.
Yeah, this is classic 3%, so I'm tagging it as such. I want to the thing that's interesting to me is I'm seeing the not a no, not a yes. I'm kind of curious as to why you didn't get the meeting.
It's not, the volume isn't that heavy where it becomes that much of an issue. So the method we have is pretty good for what we need right now.
Got it. And how many sales reps are you working with in your role?
About 60 total.
Okay, 60. Well, that's quite a bit. And how many calls are they usually making in a day?
20, 25 a person, somewhere in that ballpark, depending on what activities we've got going on, what initiatives.
Got it. Well, a lot of the sales leaders I've spoken to who have SalesLoft in place, I hear that a lot, is everyone's using SalesLoft now, is that they are having trouble finding the coachable moments on those calls when they just have like that pile of recordings. But they like using us in conjunction with them because our technology makes it easier to find those specific moments within a call by using artificial intelligence to mine those specific keywords out of a conversation. And we can highlight those and send them straight to your inbox so you guys can review those parts together to make sure maybe your not so top performers are saying the right things that the top performers are.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense, man. Hey, look, man, I got to run to a 1:30 here. You kind of caught me at a bad time. Do you want to shoot me an email maybe with some information?
Yeah, just.
All right. Okay. So I know what you're thinking. Say it.
Go for time.
Well, yes and no. Tony, go ahead.
There's definitely intrinsic product market fit here, right? So we can definitely help. There was a level of interest, and maybe this 1:30 meeting is real, and maybe it's not. Like it could absolutely be real, right? But we've now lost control. So there's interest, but what hasn't happened is we haven't anchored the reason why they should care. So then I keep going back to the point of view. So this company's getting, I don't know, 600 to 800 calls a day, you know, out of their team. The reality is, if you think, okay, so what would be the business result, you know, of what Exec Visions could do? And if the business result is we could help them improve their win rates, their conversion rates by 10 to 20%, you know, and in a way that enables the sales managers to be far more effective, or in a way that enables a sales manager to effectively manage more people, you know, or apply their time more effectively to driving the revenue piece. That's in. I've stumbled around how I'm saying that, but that's in essence why they should care, right? There's, you know, it's great that they've got some good technology in place, but there's an opportunity for this person to drive stronger revenue growth for the business, and in a way that makes both sellers and sales management more efficient. You know, they're getting more productivity out of those two roles in the organization. Right. So lead with why they should care. Just keep asking yourself, so what, so what, so what? Like, when do I get to the thing that really matters? And there's a concept I work with organizations of flip it. So what happens is we tend to explain who we are and what we do and build up to the benefit. We haven't really got to the benefit yet. And now the person's saying, send me an email. We need to put the benefit at the front of the conversation. Hey, the reason for the call is I know you're already using some great technology, but I think there's an opportunity for you, you know, to drive 10 to 20% of stronger revenue growth, and in a way where you get a greater level of efficiency out of your sales managers and salespeople. Hey, do you mind if I ask? Now, again, look, you know, I obviously haven't nailed that. I don't sell for this business, right? But that is in essence the concept. You want to get them to lean in. Well, how would you guys do that? Or sorry, what do you guys do again? Right? You say, hey, we work with organizations that already have these technologies deployed, you know, which he's told you that they have, to help them get a lot more value, right, out of those platforms, so that your reps can accelerate revenue growth, get more of your people hitting their number, and enable your sales managers to do a better job in coaching more people in their team. You know, because stronger, more effective coaching is the thing that we see enables organizations to accelerate revenue growth. Do you mind if I ask? You know, and then I'll have a question. You know, how do you know whether your sales managers are doing a good job with coaching? You know,
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it, Vivian. So you know how you said, I know it. Go for time. Though you're right. The thing that's missing here is, like he said, the business hook and the context and the hypothesis. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And this would be a simple place to go, well, geez, you're actively buying right now. You're doing a bake-off of these two things. We're hearing that even once you have one of those two things implemented, it's not going to help you improve win rates, because they really don't focus on what's being said on calls. It's not going to really help you onboard your reps any faster, because there's no easy way to leverage those recordings in a library. And ultimately, your managers are probably managing a lot more people, and it's a lot harder for them to do this and hold consistency and accountability when their span of controls are bigger. Do you mind if I ask, how are you handling those situations? And then, geez, it seems like we have a really good alignment here. Do you have your calendar? See what I mean? Do you have your calendar? Yeah. And go for time. I'd like to hear, Matt, I'd like to hear you do that a little bit earlier in the call, so that you could have the table set, so that, boom, you get the meeting set like right here. Actually, let's hear if he tries to do it.
Off the top of your head, do you know if you have some availability over the next couple of weeks to get like a scheduled call? I know I got you out of the blue here, but I could set something up. We could even show you the product, show you what it looks like, and how our customers are using SalesLoft or Zant with us.
Not right now, man. Maybe down the road. The focus now is really just getting these new solutions up and running. We haven't even had users with things on keys yet, but maybe down the line, about 6 months, maybe to a year, once we've kind of adapted.
There's your objection, right?
Yeah, and hey, you know, we're not looking to add more tech to the stack. I've got my hands full, you know, with this current thing I'm doing. And the reason this is a problem in the call is we didn't open and anchor with why they should care. Just a little bit of coaching for everybody listening to this. When someone says that they're looking to drive some kind of change, which this person did on the other end of the call, they said, hey, we're actually looking to replace that. You know, we're assessing options now. the question you should try and jump to in my mind as soon as you can is, hey, do you mind if I ask what's happened inside the organization that's caused you to want to look at that? Right. So what's happened inside the organization that's caused you to want to look at that? Now, if like, hopefully they'll say, hey, look, the sort of success rates in our sales team are too low. You know, we're not getting the revenue growth that we were expecting. You know, our sales managers are complaining that they're not able to be effective with their coaching time. They can't find those points. So hopefully they'll say something that we can key in on. And then the next thing you want to ask, so, hey, what's happened inside the organization that's caused you to actually be looking at this? And when you make the change, what improved results are you expecting? You know, what improved results are you expecting? And then the third one is where do you see the risks in getting this all done successfully? Because, you know, the thing we all know is it's very easy to put technology in where it was implemented successfully, but it still doesn't go and get the result that the business was expecting. You know, so what's the business case that's being put up internally to actually invest in this kind of change? Because if there's a way for us at Exec Vision to help you de-risk that and to make sure you get even stronger results, because the thing in a point of view is you want a point of view to be around one or a multiple of three things. You know, I've got some ideas on how I think you can get even stronger results, you know, than you're planning on. Or I've got some ideas on how you can bring those results forward and achieve them sooner. Or I've got some ideas on how I think you can de-risk, you know, this change project that you've got internally. And everyone's interested in that, right? So getting to why they're looking at changing is really key. We've got to get to why they should care before we just start throwing things out. It's really key. And when we spring from the bushes, you know, to surprise somebody with our presence, you know, when we give them a call, you know, they're thinking a couple of things. If they're senior, they're thinking be brief and be gone, right? Because really senior people are just busy. And then the other thing they're thinking after, you know, who the hell are you? The other thing they're thinking is, why should I care about even talking to you? So we have to nail that quickly, really important.
And Tony, I mean, because we keep coming back to this, I had to show this slide. I wasn't planning on it.
Yeah.
This is the thing that's tough about cold calling. I don't care if you're a junior SDR or you're a senior account executive, strategic account executive, calling into different, you know, people that you don't have relationships with in your one strategic account, you know, IBM or something. Ultimately, what it comes down to is people are in one of these three areas. And it's very difficult, if not probably a bad idea in many cases, to ask the question why for someone who's in the 57% or even someone who's in a lot of the 40%. But one of the rare parts of, you know, if you encounter someone in the market where you always want to ask why, which is what Tony's doing right here, are the people in the 3%. Because if someone's in the 3%, you want to ask, why are you actively evaluating? And then what Tony just said, which is the key word right there, it's what's changed. That's the key word in this whole thing. What's changed in the business that's put you in a place where you are? And I'm actually going to take a look and type that one word in here to see, you know, and it looks like it's kind of towards the end.
Yeah, unless you get any stuff as I get it, if there's any changes. But yeah, looking forward to connecting over the next couple months, and maybe we get something on the calendar to show you what we got here.
Right, and Matt, you know, kind of, you know, went to overcome that resistance, but like you said, it was created earlier in the call, probably could have been circumvented, use the excuse as the reason, right? And then he's kind of going a little bit gentle in that good night, to quote the famous, who was it that wrote that poem? Do not go gentle into that good night, Dylan Thomas, is that it?
Yeah, I don't know, but I love the poem. It's great.
Do not go gentle into that good night. And Matt doesn't, you know, none of them do. Vivian didn't when she was an SDR. Samantha doesn't, Matt doesn't. We're about to hear one of Pete's calls. They don't. And this is one of those ones where it's, my business partner describes it this way, Tony. It's funny. He says, there is some percentage of people that'll just take the meeting no matter what. There's some percentage of people that they're not going to take the meeting no matter what. And then you got these folks in the middle that could go either way. And that's really what dictates who are going to be the high performers that get promoted and move on in their careers versus the folks that don't have that happen. So one last call. Do we have time? What do we have? Do we have any comments coming up here, Vivian, that are worth looking at, or can we just go forward?
No, most of them are requests from customers to get them added to their instance. I'm taking note of all of those. But no additional questions.
Get those support tickets in. We'll make it happen here. All right. We'll make it happen. All right, here we go.
I know we did just have scheduled until 4:50, just so you know, but happy to keep going if you are.
Tony, you got anything? Can you keep going?
Yeah, sorry, buddy. I'd missed that question. The internet just dropped out a second. Absolutely, I can.
Great.
Come on, we got him from Australia. Stop. Keep going. There we go. Pete. Now, here's a funny story about Pete. He's my neighbor at our old house. He used to babysit our kids, and he was an intern for us for several summers, and now full-time after he graduated college. Poor guy graduated college in 2020. That's a tough time to graduate college, so my heart goes out to folks in that situation. Here we go.
Hey, is this Darren?
Yes.
Hi, Darren. This is Peter over at Exec Vision. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good, thanks. I actually saw, congratulations, I just saw you were promoted to executive director. It looks like you were the director of SMB for a while, but now executive director. I realize I'm catching you out of the blue here. Do you have a quick second?
Yeah, but can you tell me a little bit about who you are? I don't recognize your name or company.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm calling from a company. We kind of help companies coach their reps asynchronously, remotely, help them replicate top performers. I figured with you being the director of SMB sales, you probably had a hand in, training and developing your reps. Am I in the right place?
Did I train and develop my reps? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. Your phone's coming in a little bit choppy, just so you know.
I apologize about that.
Go ahead. Keep on talking, though.
Yeah, I was wondering, I've been talking to a lot of other people that are kind of in a similar space that are coaching and call coaching their reps. How are you, obviously, with everything going on, getting prospects on the phone? Reps are having a lot less at bats. What are you doing to, coach your reps while a lot of people are not centrally located?
Thank you for the question. I'm not going to divulge what we're doing just because I don't know you. But if you would like to attempt to work with me, I would read any literature that you want to send to me. I'm always open to give a guy a shot.
Absolutely, I'm more than happy to do that. What's the best email for me to email you at?
How did you get my information in the first place?
You are in our CRM. I was actually looking at Ingram Micro, the account, and then I kind of prospected you, and it looked like you were actually in our Salesforce instance.
Okay. You could send it to my Ingram Micro email. Do you have that?
There's a lot going on here. I don't love that answer. So normally I do my good observe, describe, prescribe, but Pete's our highest performing SDR as of now, and I'm going to shoot him straight on this one. If someone says, how do you know me? Where'd you get my contact information? You tell them something about them to spike them back in the system too. The reason I'm calling you is I see this about you, something that's on, an article they wrote, a blog they wrote, a video they had up, something about their former employers, say something about them. I called you for this reason rather than just your contact record in my CRM. No. Let's go with something that's going to spike them back in the system too. So avoid the word, your contact record in the CRM. Tony, go ahead. What are you hearing here?
Okay, so Pete, really good, solid job. But my feedback is what took about 40 seconds should have taken 10. Steve, I'd really be interested to know what your thoughts are, because I've done a lot of reading on this and there's lots of contradictory information. But my view is the best it gets for a seller when we contact a stranger is the best it gets for us before they're thinking, how do I get this person off the phone, is 7 seconds. If you haven't hooked a level of interest within 7 seconds, they're literally maybe standing up out of their chair to change their intonation of voice and vocal body language with you to sort of signal that they want the call to end. Now, this person that Peter called is obviously a sales leader. He's a type A personality. So he's clearly a driver kind of personality. But he nevertheless has empathy for someone trying to sell to him, right? So sales leaders, salespeople are kind of the easiest people to sell to because they know how tough this is and they've got empathy. So he's trying to be nice. He's trying to be open, but we took way too long to kind of get to the point of the call. You know, so I just think with the opening etiquette of the call, the sort of pleasantries, you want to get past that as quick as you can, especially if you're calling senior people, because most senior people are in a senior role because they're a type A driver type of personality, right? So they want us to get to the point.
Very good. So get that done. What is, and you know, Vivian, let's riff off this a little bit. What is the, I mean, you know, you've got a fairly good business acumen head on your shoulders, and certainly we have Tony Hughes here who has better business acumen than both of us combined. So you're talking about an executive director of SMB sales at Ingram Micro, which by the way, I love because they sell one to many. They're probably been doing
Huge.
Call recording. Their status quo on call recording is they probably have all sorts of systems and processes developed around using call recordings today that are probably very hard, cumbersome, challenging, frustrating, those kinds of things. But talk to me about, Vivian, what would you say the common challenge is for an SMB sales leader at Ingram Micro? What would you guess?
I'm not sure what Ingram Micro does off the top of my head.
They're an IT distributor.
They sell a lot of other people's stuff pretty much.
Yeah. So they sell to the resellers that then sell to end customers, and they would have literally hundreds of vendor relationships. So they would, you know, resell Microsoft products, Cisco, Red Hat, you know, all of those kinds of things to people.
VMware, HPE, you name it. They're going to resell a whole lot of other, or really distribute to resellers a whole lot of other people's stuff, right? So if you're a company that's selling a whole lot of different, you know, not only products and services, but not even your own, you're selling other people's products and services. And oh, by the way, you're selling them to SMBs, small to mid-sized businesses, and there are lots of small to mid-sized businesses. What is that telling you?
I mean, it might be tough to identify which product would be the most valuable to pitch, and then when you are pitching that, are you adding fries with that? Are you trying to identify different pain points or different departments within the companies, or maybe not SMB? So it would be more so, are you identifying the product that is going to be to add the most value for them? And if you are you asking questions that might be able to identify different products as well?
Tony, I love it. What do you think? This type of business is really driven by the productivity of the reps, right? So they've got an army of people account managing all of their resellers. They're drowning, absolutely drowning in a sea of data, you know, in which they struggle to get insights. It's so easy for the salespeople to waste their time on the wrong things. So driving sales effectiveness with people that have to do, you know, very high levels of cadence, you know, is really tricky. So again, for any sales leader, I would just say, hey, look, I know you're probably already swimming in tech, but with everything going on right now, I've actually got some ideas on how you can drive more productivity, you know, out of all of your salespeople. You know, I know they would have all of them have got a big portfolio of partners that they're working with. But what we're seeing, you know, with disties, especially with the way the economy is going right now, is a real focus on driving the productivity of every seller. Like I would maybe lead in with something like that, because you think if this person's the sales leader, you just got to ask yourself, if I was this sales leader, what do I care about? How am I measured in my role? And that's why buyer personas are just so important. You need to look at a buyer persona and think, okay, this is the head of sales. They're responsible for forecast accuracy to their boss. They're responsible for hiring and retaining their best reps. They're responsible for the yield per salesperson. Like, you know, there's a whole bunch of things. Maybe they're responsible for net new logos coming on board. They're responsible for selling certain product categories and hitting targets that they've got with vendors if they're a distie. So there's a lot of things there, but you just got to pick two things where you think that we can help them move the needle, right? So, you know, I've got some ideas on how you can drive up the productivity of your salespeople. and in a way that takes the risk out of your own forecasting. Now, I'm not saying that's the thing, right? But you've got to pick something that you know they care about. Because as sure as day follows night, they absolutely do not want more tech in the stack, more tech to manage, another vendor to deal with. What they just want is more of their reps hitting their number predictably. So just talk about, I got a point of view on how you, and again, we make them the hero of the story, not us. I've got some ideas on how you could, not on how we could. I've got some ideas on how Exec Visions could come in and do this for you. I've got some ideas on how you can drive more productivity out of your sellers. I know as a disty, you're working on super razor thin margins, and the productivity is really important. Hey, do you mind if I ask, right? How do you know whether your managers are doing a really good job or not on coaching sellers?
I love it. Tony, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you. I mean, really incredible session. I mean, if you're someone who has to generate appointments with people who don't know you, I don't care if you're an account manager, I don't care if you're a new business salesperson that only works with big strategic accounts, and you have to get it, a few relationships over in different business units. I don't care if you're an SDR making cold calls, that's a recent college grad. Any or all of the above, that session right there that we just did, I think everyone needs to see. And I'm guessing that's a lot of what you were talking about was within combo prospecting, right?
Yeah, so
I kind of figured. I mean, for goodness sakes, people, I hear so many folks talking about binge watching shows on Netflix. Netflix revenue is just off the charts, and their watch times are off the chart. All their metrics are off the charts. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up why someone wouldn't spend 30 minutes a night. You've already binge watched 2 shows. Instead of watching the third, grab Combo Prospecting and read it. Grab the Joshua Principle and read it. It doesn't make any sense to me. So you got to work on your own craft. Big shout out to Sam, Pete, and Matt for allowing us to play their calls. That is not an easy thing to say yes to. And they didn't even just say yes. They were all over it with exclamation points like, yes, please play my calls. And that's the kind of call coaching culture you want to try to create in your organizations. And Vivian, thank you very much for all of your insights and for being thrown on the spot. Tony, final thoughts?
I thought all 3 of those people did an excellent job. And again, thank you. It was a privilege to be on this, and thank you. Hopefully we'll do it again.
Thanks so much, Tony. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.